So the original intention this year was to make a video for the anthology series called Interlude, which would take place after Compendium and would sort of slowly get the universe towards its conclusion. But I figured it was kind of too early to do that. The story would have followed Alan, the spiky-haired guy from Compendium, and sort of his story and what's going on, and would eventually lead to the final installment of the anthology series called The Remnants. But I was like, nah, let's try to run out the universe a little more and sort of add these different stories that I had in mind. There's plenty of stories that I want to make that I feel like should be done before Interlude, so Interlude will still happen, but it sort of left me with a hole in my schedule. And what was I going to do? How was I going to fill it? Well, I decided to come up with a new project. And that is where the Proxy came in. So the Proxy is actually inspired by a show called The Wire, which is an amazing show. I highly recommend it. It's this cop show that takes place in Baltimore, but it's much more than just an average cop show. There's so much stuff going on with it. It's amazing. But in the show, there's the character, one of the greatest characters in the show, Omar, who's this sort of stick-up boy. You know, he goes around and he takes care of all these drug dealers and stuff like that. He's sort of like a Robin Hood type character. He's really cool. Sort of a vigilante-esque type guy that only goes after the bad guys. But, you know, he sort of does things that are still immoral and against the law and everything, but he does it for good. So I kind of wanted to, I was kind of inspired by a scene. There's a particular scene, I believe in season 3, where he's sort of working with this guy at the bar. You know, he's sort of like, this guy kind of like hands him some contracts or information and stuff too. So I was like, hey, what if I kind of expanded upon that and did a anthology video on that? And here we are. That's where the Proxy came in. So I was like, I had this idea for, you know, this guy at a bar, you know, that's sort of handling this hitman, you know, he's working as a proxy. That, you know, this guy is like sort of dealing with the clients and stuff, so the clients don't really know who this guy is, and yeah. And, you know, sort of the plot came out of that. You know, I just wanted to sort of show what this guy's life was like, sort of the trials and tribulations, the successes, and sort of the shortcomings and the potential almost failures and pitfalls that he falls into with, you know, almost getting, no, you know, the cop coming in and everything. But then I had this idea of like, what if like somebody hired him and used it as a trap? You know, it's sort of like, this guy is pretty powerful. This guy is taking care of some higher up people and stuff like that throughout his career. He's sort of like a ghost in the wind. And what if this guy caught the ghost and even killed the ghost? So, but I wasn't really sure like who to use at the time. I really didn't know like who should be like the main villain. It was going to be, you know, maybe somebody new, somebody trying to get, you know, the seat of power that's left by Shades now that he's gone after Compendium. But I wasn't too sure who to use. Like there was like, you know, we've had some other villains and stuff in the past too, like, you know, the main villains of Welcome Tenants. I was considering using them, but it's like, nah, I don't know if that would work. I don't think they're like, they really need to do that. Like they already have a lot of power as it is. You know, they're part of the Bureau of Numbers, this elite group of assassins that is very deadly, and, you know, if you come across them, you're probably not going to survive and everything. So I figured that wouldn't quite fit. They already have enough power as it is. But then I remembered there's this one guy, all the way back in Compendium. The Compendium sort of like circled around a few different characters. You had, of course, you know, Alan, and then you had, you know, this police officer guy and Shades and everything, and Donna as well. So, you know, I wanted to sort of expand upon their stories too. Like this is sort of like the starting point of the universe, even though Equivocal came out first, but I wanted to sort of like use Compendium as like sort of the splitting off point. So we're gonna get an Alan, you know, movie type project with Interlude. We're gonna eventually like see more of Donna and stuff like that. I feel like she's gonna be one of the main characters in The Remnants. So see more of her and everything. You know, maybe there'll be a video with her, you know, a movie type video with her before The Remnants too. And then of course we already have seen Shade's backstory with, you know, Done in Smoke of Hell. I was like, oh, but that sort of leaves like one of the main 4 characters that sort of doesn't really have anything, you know, the police officer guy who doesn't, I don't think has a name, but, you know, just call him the police officer, I don't know. So he's sort of this disgraced cop. He gets caught up in this, you know, this dangerous world and everything because Shade sort of like co-ops him into his little criminal empire and everything. So, you know, he becomes one of the cops that Shades uses and stuff like that, sort of like showing his power and showing his reach, that it even reaches into the police department. So that's why he's been able to get away with all of this stuff for so long. But I really didn't have any plans for that guy. You know, he could have popped up in Welcome Tenants because they sort of were going after another corrupt cop too. but I just didn't. So I was like, this guy's sort of a hanging thread. Why don't we sort of deal with him here? Why don't we have him be the guy that's like, okay, so like, his career is shot and everything. He's a corrupt cop and everything, and now the person that he was working for is gone. So what does he do now? He can't just go back to normal police work anymore. So he has a taste for it, taste for the criminal world. So he decides to sort of start his own criminal empire and sort of take over and fill the void that Shades left. So, he sort of feels like he has to like leverage power and he has to show that he's like, the biggest guy on the block. So he, uses the Proxy to do that. So I thought that was kind of a fun story. And I feel like sometimes these sort of end in depressing ways, in the end of Equivocal, the one guy is meant to kill the other, his friend, his buddy from Vietnam and stuff. That's the ultimate twist, that the hit is on, not on the guy that they're looking for, but actually, the hitman himself. And then, of course, like Compendium, sort of like, I feel like I've kind of moved away and I've kind of like dispelled sort of the ending of Compendium, unfortunately. But originally it was sort of left ambiguous, so you didn't really know who survived and who died. You didn't know if like both Alan and Shades died, or if like Alan just died and Shades was still alive, but he's sort of like, is having this last vision of like his girlfriend and everything. So I've of course dispelled that with the bookkeep and everything. But at the time though, it was sort of like, a little more ambiguous and maybe like in a way sort of bittersweet of an ending. But then, yeah, like all these endings have been sort of like a little darker too. I feel like the bookkeep isn't quite as dark, but it's sort of like unveils sort of a larger secret that like, the Bureau of Numbers is number one to like, number one is the head, but then you realize, you find out there's there's somebody above number one, there's a zero. So, yeah, that obviously will be continued and played a little further in the future and stuff. Sort of the Bureau of Numbers kind of like becomes like sort of the glue that holds everything together. It's not like everything has the Bureau of Numbers in it, but eventually you'll see how it all comes together in the end with the remnants once again. But yeah, and then Welcome Tenants, the main character. You find out that the main character is the one that gets killed in the very beginning. It sort of loops back around to that, and you think it's going to be the other hitman, but no, it's actually the main character we've been following. So that guy is screwed too. And in the end of, Done as Smoke, it's also like, he kills his best friend, he kills, his wife and everything, and he's like, yeah, I'm the king, baby, but, it's like he had to sacrifice a lot to get there. So all these endings sort of had a darker twist and everything, and sort of, aren't the happiest, most hopeful endings. But I wanted that to change, I feel like Anthology 1963 sort of gets at that too, sort of it has a much more positive ending too. But in the end, though, I was like, we gotta make the Proxy a little more fun and stuff. That I think that I still have a lot of fun making these videos, and they're definitely like our moments of fun and everything too. I think like especially like I think one of my favorite bits that sort of is kind of a darker fun is the bit in Done as Smoke when they're going after the hit woman's kid and stuff like that. Like she's a number two, but she's being controlled by this boss. And they go after that, and then they take care of business and save the kid. That was a fun scene. But at any rate, though, yeah. So I want this one to be a little more fun. This guy's like obviously killing people, so that's not good. But it's sort of like I wanted the presentation to be kind of fun. And to have a sort of somewhat lighthearted ending. Like obviously, like he gets cornered and stuff like that, but in the end, he wins out, and the power of friendship saves the day when the bartender comes in and saves our friend, the Proxy. So I thought that was kind of fun. The original idea actually was just in general for the project was to not show the Proxy's face until the very end. I was gonna like try to like film it where like you couldn't see his face. Like, no, it's all right. I think we can see that handsome face of his. So yeah, so that was ultimately scrapped. But I thought that would have been a kind of a fun reveal that in the end the bartender saves the guy, and then you get to see his face and everything. Sort of somewhat inspired by The Mandalorian, where if you haven't seen this first season of Mandalorian, spoilers. But there's a bit where Din gets injured and his helmet comes off for a second and you see his face, and just sort of like sort of just takes your breath away. You're just like, you're just surprised. You just see his face. Like you've gone the entire series without him taking off his helmet at that point, and you're just sort of used to it. It's like, oh, that's his face. You're just like, what? Sort of a fun little twist. But I didn't go for that. But maybe some other project. You never know. I've got plenty more anthology projects planned outside of just like the main anthology series of 1975 and 1984 I forgot the 81 one is 84, 85, 83, something like that. One of those numbers you choose. Maybe 86. I think it's probably 86. Um, and at any rate, though, yeah, this was a very fun project to make. I'm really glad that I got to make it. The soundtrack was a lot of fun too, discovering what should be on the soundtrack. I'm not like some sort of like person that has like a encyclopedic knowledge of 70s music, so all these songs that I found, most of them at least, are sort of like new to me as well. I sort of was like I looked up like, oh, give me obscure 70s songs and what are some of the greatest hits of the 70s and stuff like that, and I found these songs like Pictures of Home and everything from Deep Purple and You're No Good. I was really desperately trying to find a song to fit for the trailer. I was like, I want to have something that like, just has that sort of like fun energy to it and stuff like that, that sort of like has that 70s vibe and everything. And, preferably something that's like about like somebody that's like a bad person or whatever. And, You're No Good is like, I mean, come on. As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's it. I was like so pumped. I was listening to that song probably like 50 times a day. Heard it in my dreams and used it in the trailer. I was like, oh, we got to use it as the end song too. I'm sort of like, I'm kind of split on like using trailer songs in projects, because I kind of like sort of the freshness and originality of like not using that, 'cause it'd be so easy to use the song from the trailer in the movie. I'm not opposed to it either. I think it can be fun, but I sort of I guess have the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 mentality about it, where they used Fox on the Run for the trailer and it doesn't actually appear in the movie. So yeah, I kind of use stuff like that sort of sparingly. Like for instance, like On the Edge of Limbo, the trailer song for that, I don't think I used that in the actual project. I may have used it in like a piece of it, but it wasn't actually like a main theme that you hear. But this one I was like, I couldn't resist. It's just such a good song, and I feel like it fits, the Proxy perfectly. So I was like, I mean, we gotta use it, right? We gotta use it, and I did. So yeah, this is such a fun project. It's probably not the most compelling out of all of the anthology stuff. It doesn't have like, the greater twists and everything and the twists and turns. It's sort of more of like kind of like a day in the life of the Proxy. I wanted to make sure that I could have easily added some like more personal scenes and stuff like that, but I wanted to, instead of doing that, I wanted to just like focus on his career. I didn't want you to really know too much about him because he's a Proxy. You're not supposed to know too much about him. You don't even know his name. He has a name, but you just call him the Proxy the entire time. So I don't even know his name, man. He's not telling me anything, honestly. Jeez, this guy. But no, anyways, yeah. So it's sort of like as a less personable character that I wanted to, we'll explore later. I mean, obviously he survived, so who knows where he'll appear next, But anyways, yeah. So Proxy, very fun project to make. I'm looking forward to making more anthology stuff. I've got the anthology itch right now, man. I want to make something early in the year. We'll see what happens, but I've got some ideas, man. I got some stuff brewing. Anyways, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you all very soon. Bye-bye!